Hi everyone, I am putting together a quick video of some of the basic supplies that you will need for natural yarn dyeing. I'm not very familiar with the supplies for acid-based dyeing, but I would assume that they are somewhat close. So the first thing that we have here is our large painter's buckets. These you can find in any kind of Home Depot or Lowe's or anything else like that. They are used to soak the yarn prior to dyeing. Your yarn needs to soak for about a good 6 hours or overnight. And then they are also used to take dye out of the pots when you have large dye lots. Moving over to the pots, definitely the most essential part of yarn dyeing. They range in size from extremely large down to relatively small. The silver pots that you see on the right are stainless steel. There are really only two sets of pots that you can use for natural yarn dyeing. One is enamel, which is the one in the middle, and then stainless steel, which are on both sides. I got all of my pots at Army surplus stores for incredibly cheap. So there's always that option. The multi-sized pots are used for the actual dyeing in itself. So the one on the bottom can take about 6 skeins at one time, all the way up to the pot in the very top, basically only being able to take one. So depending upon what it is that you're dyeing, you have a multiple range of sizes. The very large pots that you see, both the enamel pot and this very large stainless steel pot on the left, are used to actually mordant the yarn. The one on the left can handle about 12 skeins and the enamel pot about 9. So then moving back up here, you have a variety of basic supplies. So these here are strainers that you can use. You can see through it. So when each skein of yarn is finished dyeing, it can be placed in this strainer to allow extra color to wash out, and then it can be used to gently wash the skeins themselves. Same thing really goes here for your basic Rubbermaid bucket. These are the buckets that I always rinse every skein of yarn out individually, and I normally will also soak the skein if it is heavy in color, in dye. From here we move on to your basic roaster. That's kind of strange, but that's actually what we use. The roasters are used specifically for wool dyeing. So it's a great method that uses a paint straining bag, which I will show you. And you place the wool in that, place water in the roaster, and then that's actually how you dye the wool. The wool for Shivaya is dyed basically one section at a time. So every 4-ounce thing of wool that you purchase was done individually. We don't bulk do our wool, and I will of course go into that technique in detail on Thursday. Glass jars for actually placing the dye into. Now you have two options here. When I first started Shivaya, I solicited every friend I had for plastic yogurt containers, and I actually would probably go down that road. If people have them, you can eventually recycle them because the dye is food grade. But there's also the glass jar option. The only bad part with that is that you're going to be pouring boiling water into the glass jars, so you would need to be extremely careful about making sure that you don't burn yourself. But that is the option that I've used in the last year, just to be a little bit more eco-friendly. Plastic spoons, strainers, whisks, candy thermometers. These are all things that are basic tools that you will need all the time. The spoons, you're going to be stirring multiple colors of yarn, multiple dye lots. You can see the big blue spoon there. It's my indigo spoon. I got these spoons, I think, probably Target. I don't know. But they were so incredibly cheap, and I never had to replace them. They could just be placed in warm water in my sink and cleaned off. They were fantastic. A inexpensive teapot. You are going to be, for natural dyeing, like I said, you add boiling water to each of your dyes. So this was a plug-in, you poured the water in, plugged it in, electrical teapot. It's awesome. Burners. In the summertime, and even in some parts of the spring and fall, would dye yarn outdoors. Not natural dye has no fumes that you need to be careful with, but it does, as any dyeing project would have, is messy. So you can use the burners to actually cook your yarn with a little bit more ease outdoors. And then finally, like my shoes in the background there, the big steamer. I got this online from an Asian food supply store, and it was awesome. It was inexpensive. It's normally 3-tiered, but I just, generally speaking, for day-to-day dyeing, only use the first tier. So this is when you're hand painting yarn. It gets wrapped in plastic and then placed inside of the steamer to steam for an hour. And again, I'm going to be going through techniques beginning on Wednesday and then ending on Thursday, but this is just your basic supply list.